Have you ever had this strange, almost unsettling feeling, like the world you're living in has suddenly become too small for you? You wake up to your usual routine, do the exact same things, look at the exact same people, but there's this quiet, persistent voice in your head saying, "I don't belong here anymore." And it's not because your life is bad. It's just that you've literally outgrown it. The hardest part is looking around. You see people who've been stuck in the exact same loop for years, and they are genuinely fine with it. They don't lose sleep over existential questions. So, inevitably, you start comparing yourself to them and thinking, is there something wrong with me? Why can't I just sit back and enjoy the ride? But what if this suffocating feeling isn't a glitch in your psyche? What if it's the ultimate sign that your consciousness is making an evolutionary leap right now? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something people rarely talk about. What happens when your inner world completely outgrows your outer reality? Why are some people perfectly content with the daily grind, while others are practically hardwired to suffocate in stagnation? And how do you find your footing when your old life feels like a tight coat, but your new one hasn't been tailored yet? Let's dive in. To understand why your daily routine is suffocating you while others seem perfectly content, we need to look at how we perceive reality. In philosophy and psychology, this difference in perception goes by many names. But for our purposes, we can think of it as a contrast between the static mind and the expanding mind. The first type is the static mind. The psyche here runs on a highly efficient, energy-saving mode. These individuals are perfectly integrated into the surface layer of reality: the job, the errands, the daily routine, and basic entertainment. Any deep existential questions or inner shifts are automatically filtered out as useless, white noise because their mind simply doesn't need them to function. They are genuinely comfortable in their routine because their inner volume perfectly matches the flat, predictable box they live in. There is no internal conflict, and for them, this life is entirely satisfying. But then there is the second type, the expanding mind. And if you're watching this video, you almost certainly belong to this category. Your mind refuses to stay flat. It has discovered other dimensions of existence. You begin to function like a hypersensitive receiver that constantly, even subconsciously, tunes into a completely different frequency, seeking authentic purpose, deeper truths, and the psychological or metaphysical layers of life. Your inner world is undergoing a massive expansion. And this is where the real drama begins. Your physical world, your daily grind, and your household duties remain completely static. They cannot change overnight. But your inner volume has just tripled. Your reality starts crushing you like a tight coat you've hopelessly outgrown. You now experience a profound, painful gap between the flat routine you are forced to navigate and the immense, expanding depth of who you actually are. In this state, stagnation is a slow death. When you try to force yourself to shrink back down, to be like everyone else, and find joy in a reality that no longer satisfies your inner growth, your psyche triggers an alarm. What we usually dismiss as sudden anxiety, apathy, or a feeling of being completely disconnected from the world isn't a disease. It is the friction of an expanding mind waking up. It causes you intense discomfort for one reason only: to keep you from falling permanently asleep in a world that has become way too small for you. This sudden expansion of your consciousness brings you to a psychological point of no return. Think about it. For centuries, humanity believed the Earth was the flat, immovable center of the universe, and everyone was perfectly content with that narrow view. But once Copernicus proved that the Earth was actually spinning and orbiting the sun, everything changed. You couldn't just unlearn that truth. You couldn't go back to believing your small world was the fixed, immovable center of the universe. The exact same thing happens to your mind. Once your perception expands and you catch a glimpse of the deeper, multidimensional layers of life, you cannot force yourself to unsee it. You cannot trick your mind into pretending that the local grocery store, the daily household chores, or surface-level small talk are the absolute center of your universe. And this is where a very specific kind of starvation sets in, meaning deprivation. Traditional psychology often frames a lack of motivation as a simple chemical imbalance, a deficit of dopamine. But for the expanding mind, the issue is much deeper than a random chemical glitch. Your mind is wired to demand purpose. It literally refuses to trigger those internal rewards for empty, robotic actions. When you're forced to spend your days doing mechanical tasks that carry zero deeper significance for you, your mind goes on strike. It doesn't matter how comfortable or safe your life looks from the outside. If there is no intellectual or spiritual substance to feed your consciousness, you will feel completely drained. You're not lazy, and you haven't lost your drive. Your mind is simply boycotting a reality that no longer serves your growth. And this is where you enter the most terrifying stage of the journey. Your old identity, your familiar pillars of support, and the rules you used to live by start cracking at the seams. In this moment, it is incredibly easy to panic, self-diagnose with depression, and assume that you are completely broken. But when expanding mind expands, the old, rigid structure of your personality has to fracture. Before you can transition to a completely new level of development, the outdated version of you must break down. You are thrust into a period of mental chaos and internal rebellion because you are instinctively trying to cling to the old walls. But eventually, the storm clears, leaving you in a state of absolute, ringing silence. You enter what is known as a liminal state, the threshold between your past and your future. It is not a psychological failure. It's a transit dock. You are simply dismantling your life and your identity like a complex piece of machinery, realizing that you need to throw away the societal programming and the automatic habits that were forced upon you. Only then can you begin to assemble who you truly are. The deep discomfort you feel right now isn't a sign of your demise. It is proof that your spirit has outgrown its current container. So, what do you actually do when you find yourself trapped in a reality that has become too tight for your expanding mind? How do you survive the friction of your own expansion? First, you must change your perspective on your daily routine. Stop fighting it, and stop viewing your household duties or your static environment as a prison sentence. Instead, treat it as a temporary scaffolding. The routine is what holds your physical life together while your mind undergoes its reconstruction. When you wash the dishes, drive to work, or navigate the daily grind, do it with the detachment of an actor playing a role. It is no longer your identity. It is simply the ground beneath your feet while you build what comes next. Second, you need to deliberately address your meaning deprivation. Since your mind refuses to generate energy for empty actions, you must feed it authentic, high-quality substance. You don't need to quit your job or upend your life tomorrow. Start small. Dedicate even 30 minutes a day to something that genuinely challenges your intellect, connects you to the metaphysical, or fuels your creativity. When you give your expanding mind the depth it craves, the internal alarm clock stops ringing so painfully. And finally, accept the liminal state. Stop trying to rush through the silence or force yourself to feel normal again. The discomfort you are experiencing is not a sign that you are lost. It is the labor pains of your new personality. You have outgrown the flat layout of the one-dimensional world. Your universe has expanded, and now it is time to step forward and start living in all of its dimensions. Embrace the space you were always meant to hold.